Suzuki Vitara of the second generation has been produced since 2015. Thanks to the reasonable price, this crossover quickly became popular and now the secondary market is saturated with it. And with which engine is it better to buy a used Vitara? The design of the model is simple and somewhat conservative. The manual boxes are excellent. The 6-speed automatic Aisin TF73 SC is considered almost eternal. It easily overheats, the heat exchanger is not efficient enough, and does not tolerate dirty oil well, but it serves 250 to 300,000 kilometers for careful owners. The four-wheel drive system is not suitable for serious off-roading, but if it is not stressed, it also works for a long time and without fail. So, when choosing Vitara, you will have to push yourself precisely from the engine. There are only two of them, naturally aspirated 1.6, 117 horsepower, and turbocharged 1.4, 140 horsepower. And only it provides the car with acceptable dynamics. You don't have to expect liveliness from the 1.6 engine, especially in combination with the automatic. And what about reliability? The M16A 1.6 motor is old and massive. It has been modernized many times in the direction of increasing power and at the same time improving ecology. It got to the Vitara already with a lighter connecting rod piston group, which did not affect reliability, service life, and maintainability. All aluminum, but cast iron sleeves withstand boring well, and pistons are reparable. I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what breaks and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro. It can completely digest 90-second gasoline and is generally tolerant of fuel quality, but engines with high mileage are, of course, better to feed 95th, otherwise you will have to clean the dirt more often than the throttle valve and candles overgrow very quickly. There are no hydraulic compensators. Gap adjustment is required every 100 to 120,000 kilometers. I want to say something disappointing about the engine, but nothing. The only thing is that it, like the chain mechanism of the timing drive, is very sensitive to the quality and level of oil. If it is lacking, you can expect turning of the tabs and burrs on the crankshaft necks. It is also necessary to monitor the temperature. Overheating causes the head to warp and the cylinder head gasket to fly out, and change the spark plugs every 25 to 30,000 kilometers. With all that, even with not particularly careful care, nothing will usually happen to the motor up to 200,000 kilometers. Perhaps after 150,000 it will be necessary to change the valve seals and clean the piston rings from soot. 90-second gasoline, by the way, inevitably accelerates the coking process. Individual ignition coils, which also depend on the quality of the fuel, can cause some problems. By and large, this is one of the best engines out there. Many have passed 300,000 kilometers without serious interventions. The timing chain often lasts more than 200,000. There are enough spare parts, all types of repairs are tried and relatively simple. This unit is known as Boosterjet 1.4. It has been produced since 2015, but has an engineering history of more than 20 years, Series K, and is devoid of any significant sores. Not only power, but also its torque is much higher than that of the naturally aspirated engine, 220 against 150 Newton meters, and the catch-up starts at 1500 RPM, which just affects the dynamics. True, and on the loads that come to the transmission too. Among modern turbo engines with direct injection, it is quite reliable. There were no inexplicable drops in compression, gouges, and destruction of the pistons. In general, he has extremely rare problems on runs of up to 150,000 kilometers. Then the wear and tear of many elements is already visible. Gasoline lower than 95th is inadmissible. A more frequent oil change will not be superfluous either. The oil chad develops faster here, up to 100,000 kilometers. It may be necessary to replace the piston rings. Sometimes the timing chain also appears at this mark, apparently an adepts of intensive overclocking. Although the chain can withstand 150,000 kilometers. The Mitsubishi turbocharger is durable. There are hydraulic compensators. In general, a normal engine. In terms of resource, of course, it is inferior to the atmospheric one. You can orient yourself for 250,000 kilometers. When choosing a Suzuki Vitara with a mileage of 100 to 150,000 kilometers, both motors are worth paying attention to. But, taking into account their features, we recommend 1.6 for purely urban use. For those who drive a lot on country roads, 1.4 is more suitable and it is easier to overtake with it, and it is much more comfortable in such modes than in traffic jams. Searching for a version with all-wheel drive does not make much sense. The clutch is very delicate and cannot withstand harsh conditions. And on easy off-road, the front-wheel drive will drive perfectly. And in terms of maintenance, it is a little cheaper.